Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, the podcast that explores the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply want to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, travel transformation coach, founder of Flip the Script Travel Transformation Services, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation. I have a special guest with me today, Erica Forrest from Trip Scholars. Erica is a travel education specialist who helps curious people create more meaningful wanderings. As the founder of her travel education company, Trip Scholars, she blends over 30 years' experience in education with the discoveries made through her own journeys. She inspires others to make the most of their time before departure, allowing them to better understand their destinations and ultimately themselves. She is a certified travel education coach. She has been featured in BuzzFeed, Apartment Therapy, and Authority magazine. I really enjoyed this interview. Erica is clearly very knowledgeable and very passionate about travel, especially how to make the most of travel before you go and how to make the most of that excitement and anticipation that we all feel when we're planning a trip. We laughed a lot. I learned a lot about geology, history, all kinds of things that I did not expect to learn about during this conversation. And I just had a really great time. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Right. So, Erica, welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast. Thank you for coming on today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great, Jess. I'm so happy to be here with you and get to have this conversation. I know we're in a lot of overlapping worlds, and I'm excited about all the different things we can talk about today.
Great. And where actually are you in the world today?
I'm in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. So up in the Pacific Northwest corner of the U.S. It's really beautiful up here.
It is on my bucket list. I so want to go. It looks so nice. I want to go to, Washington, Oregon, and up into that area of Canada as well.
British Columbia. Yeah, it's really beautiful. We used to live in Oregon too. And here in Seattle, we're surrounded by like 3 national parks all within a few hours. So
oh, wow.
It's just really pretty. I hope you get to come visit.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list. Okay, so for our listeners, please could you give a little bit of background information about yourself and what you do?
Sure. My company is called Trip Scholars. I help curious people use their excitement about upcoming trips to learn more about their destinations and then ultimately about themselves. So I do that through my website where I've got all kinds of articles. A lot of them are guest articles. Then I've also got a resource library that's always growing, recommendations from people about, the best movies or games or books or something like that. And then I also do travel education coaching.
Right. So can you explain what that is, the travel education coaching? What do you actually do in your sessions? And for people maybe who aren't familiar with coaching at all, because I know some of my friends were like, what is that? What is a travel coach? How would you explain what you do?
Yeah, I know that you're also a travel coach, and I love the way that you approach it. What I focus on primarily is helping people find overlaps between what they enjoy and what they're curious about, what their hobbies are, what their learning styles are like, especially if they're traveling with other people, or a lot of times it's parents, helping them find out, what are natural ways that their kids are learning and excited, and then how can we match that up with the place where you're going so that it can become this joyful, fun thing to do in all the months preceding a trip, so that when you arrive, you're a really aware and engaged traveler. You have this whole rich background understanding the place that you're at. A lot of us don't get to travel nearly as much as we want to, and we plan our trip and then we spend a lot of time maybe on TripAdvisor, Airbnb, and then maybe planning our packing list. And there's this whole other wealth of activities that we can engage in to have our trips become these richer experiences. So I do those with just one-on-one sessions with intro conversation, and then we have one session. But then I also work long-term with people. I've developed the Learn Through Travel approach. Learn is an acronym, and the L is for listen to yourself, E is for educate yourself, A is for advance your travel skills, R is revitalizing yourself once you're traveling, and N is for nourishing your travel dreams and memories when you've returned home, and how do you integrate that back into your life. So in the extended sessions that I do with people, we dive into all of that and really help explore how travel can help us understand ourselves and help us grow.
Wow, I love that. I have a question about how people actually find you, because say if we're talking life coaching or something like that, they might have an issue or they might have something they want to work on, but they don't know what that solution is. So they wouldn't know to go into Google and, type life coach sessions or, like they don't know that that is the solution that will help them yet. So how do you go about it? Do you contact people or do they find you just because you've been putting yourself out there and spreading your message? Or
well, probably in similar ways that you do, all different kinds of ways, really trying to clarify my message and what it is that I do for people, how I like to work with folks, and finding as many different ways that I can get that message out there. So, I have a website and work a lot on SEO so that I'm bringing people in who are actually traveling somewhere and want to learn more about it. So I come up on Google, and then when they find my website, I have information about coaching on each page. I do a lot of outreach like this, getting on podcasts that are with people I respect and like. I write for other travel sites. I do a lot with publicity, try to get my name out that way. Got a mailing list and let people know what I'm doing. And I love connecting and networking with other people in this world so that, if I'm working with somebody or somebody approaches me and I don't feel like I can serve them, I could always refer them to you or somebody else I know with, if they're dealing with particular health issues or traveling as a older person and looking for support in particular ways that I might not be able to serve somebody, I can refer them, and people do that for me too.
Yeah, it's just so much about networking, isn't it? Like so
really
much of it is who you know. And I should just point out that we met online and we're both in the Travel Coach Network.
Yes.
Which is a really great community. And I've met so many great people through there. And I think it just helps just seeing that other people are doing similar things to what you're doing, and, all the support and all the information you gain. And like you say, you can refer people, and it's just really great. So if anyone is looking to become a travel coach or anything, even remotely in that world, I would highly recommend
I
the
would
Travel
too.
Coach Network.
I would too. I think the best thing I've gotten out of it has been all of the connections. The person who runs the program, she's got a wealth of information. I had already been running my business for a while before I started working with the travel coaching program, and was trying to do it all just through the website. Wasn't working one-on-one with people or anything like that, but I knew eventually I wanted to. I had no idea there was a thing called travel coaching or that there was a community of people doing that, working with a lot of the same messages and values. And then when I found it, I was, this could be really helpful. And it was. It helped me with a lot of aspects of my business. And then obviously meeting people like you.
Yeah. I had no idea that travel coaching was a thing either.
How did you find it?
It was weird, actually. I've got a book coming out and I've written about this in there. I went to Wales for a week with my friends, and it was, even though I've been traveling like most of the year, it was the first time I sort of like unplugged, put my laptop away, just really tried to relax, which I always want to be productive. So it always feels quite stressful to relax, which sounds ridiculous. But I really tried to unplug and we were in like beautiful surroundings in the middle of nowhere in Wales, sheep everywhere, rolling hills. It was beautiful. And I just tried not to think about work for about 5 or 6 days. And I was, before then I'd got a bit burnt out and a bit sort of, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, where I was going. Knew I wanted to do it around travel, and I already started doing some of that work, but I wasn't sure, what to sort of underline it with or what to call myself or any of that stuff. And then weirdly, as soon as we left Wales, I dropped my friend off at the train station and was driving away, and just terms started popping in my head, and one of them was travel transformation coach, and I don't know where it came from. I mean, I've been thinking about transforming through travel and travel transformation and that, all that stuff, but the coaching aspect I hadn't really considered. I'd sort of been resisting the whole idea of coaching, and obviously there's all kinds of coaches these days, which is great, but I didn't know if it was right for me. But then that sort of popped into my head, and I thought, I wonder if if that's a thing. So I Googled it, and the first thing that came up with was the Travel Coach Network. And I was like,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And literally the day I got back from Wales, I signed up to it and
Oh, wow.
started the program. So yeah, it was a very weird case of not knowing what I was doing and then just shutting my brain off for a few days. And then I just came back to it with like a lot of energy and enthusiasm that I did
Isn't
not
that
have
how,
before.
yeah, so many creative pursuits are like that. Like
Yeah,
you just go after something tenaciously, but you can't get it until you let yourself relax with the idea.
exactly.
And it is really amazing that you came up with travel transformation coach
Yeah.
when you didn't even know it
I
was a thing.
know. Yeah, I know. And I and I Googled it and I was like, oh, that sounds quite good. I bet someone's already got traveltransformationcoach.com. I bet someone's already got the
Mhm.
handle on Instagram and stuff, and they didn't. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna get that. So yeah, I also got the domain name and the
Well
Instagram
done.
handle that day as well.
Well done. That must have been quite a thrill to see the domain name was available.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I went through many before I found one that that was going to be a pretty good match, but I had some better ones.
Oh, I like Trip Scholars.
Thanks. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I was looking on your site, and you mentioned this a bit before, but you say that the joy of your trip begins the moment you start to plan it, and I couldn't agree more because I think half, if not most, of the joy I get out of traveling is planning it and
Yeah.
the anticipation of it. So why do you think we find so much joy in just the anticipation of going on a trip?
Well, there's actually been studies about this, and it has been shown that we experience more happiness before a trip than during it. So we've probably all had experiences where that's not true. But if you think about, while you're traveling, a lot of times people are hungry or you miss your flight and there's the lost luggage, just all the inevitable things about it. Also, when we're traveling, we're often in so many new experiences, which I know both of us really value and appreciate. But that's not always super comfortable. It's great to look back on and
Yeah.
maybe great to anticipate, but in the moment it can be a little bit stressful. So there's this a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of that anticipation and that excitement. And we found as a family, so we were a homeschooling family and used a lot of travel with what we did, and found that taking advantage of that excitement about an upcoming trip was this great opportunity to learn more about the places that we were visiting and talk about it, talk about ourselves and our understanding of it, and get this richer context. So I'm actually 53 when we were, gearing up, realizing we were going to become empty nesters eventually. And what did we want to do on the other side of raising our family, which has been a really amazing, beautiful experience? We realized we really wanted to travel. And how could we incorporate some more business ideas into having a traveling lifestyle? So, that was like bubbling side by side with this idea of, gosh, this is such a great way to experience travel. And while I was doing that, it takes a lot of time to sort through everything that's out there to find the best gems and come up with creative ideas and all of that. So I kept thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was a way that you could make this more accessible for people? Like if I could just go to a website and find the resources, and then finally, these two ideas, what do I want to do with this next chapter of my life? And wouldn't it be great if there was a way to solve this need that I had? I finally realized I could start my own business and try to solve that problem or help solve that problem for a lot of other people and use that excitement, like what we were talking about, to really help people have richer travel experiences.
I love that. And I did have a little peek at your resources,
Yeah.
which I think is such a good idea. There's loads of stuff in there. Do you have any favorite travel resources or favorite tips or anything that you often give your clients when they're preparing to organize a trip or before they go? Do you have any sort of favorite ones that you've used in the past?
Sure. Personally, one of my favorites it's called The Great Courses, but it just recently did a rebrand over the last year, and now it's called Wondrium. And it is a series of combined lectures from college professors about hundreds or maybe thousands of topics. So we just, in the last couple of weeks, decided our next trip is going to be to Northern Europe. So we just started one on Norse mythology. So it's, like 12 hours, really going a lot deeper than other resources that are out there. And they've got all kinds of great travel shows and everything. But there actually isn't anything in particular I would recommend to everyone. I think that part of what makes learning so exciting and powerful is when you can really match up what somebody's learning style is like, what their interests are, what they're actually curious about, and then help them answer the questions they already have, or help them dive in and really enjoy something so that those questions bubble up. That when we are learning things that are actually relevant to us, that we really are honestly curious about, and that they're presented in a way that we can understand them the best for the way that our mind and body works, that's when that learning just becomes so alive and so vibrant, and like you want to do the next thing, right? So if somebody is a foodie and they love to eat, right, then in their planning a trip, that can be such a fun opportunity to try out some recipes. And when you're trying out the recipes, maybe you can't buy all the ingredients in your local market. So you go to a different market further away and you're exposed to all of these other tremendous ingredients. And as you're trying to learn how to cook it and communicating, maybe if you're going with any travel partners or something like that, you're understanding more about the culture. And then you want to perhaps you discover an ingredient you want to learn more about, and then you start to dig deeper. You want to be able to go to a local restaurant that serves that food. So maybe practice your language a little bit before you get there, and then you can greet your server in their native tongue. And it just starts to build this rich tapestry of understanding so that when you're actually there and traveling, you have this understanding. I mean, it's also fun, don't get me wrong, to just drop into a place and not be prepared and have that experience too. But if you're already going to be investing time, or you're already going to be cooking, or you're already going to be watching movies or reading books or playing games or whatever it is, you can make it about the place where you're going and have these other experiences. So yeah, there isn't a particular resource that I would recommend to everybody. Instead, I would encourage people to think about, what's already interesting to them. What are they curious about? And then I've got lots of resources on the site trying to help people match that up with different locations or approaches to travel. And then when I do travel coaching, that is what we do. We work one-on-one with that.
Great. And your site is tripscholars.com.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
I will put that in the show notes as well. And what was the other one you mentioned again? The lectures?
That's Wondrium. Wondrium. Yeah. And that's just my personal favorite. It would not be appealing to many people, but it was actually part of why I started the Trip Scholars. I tried to share, they have a series on great tours at Greece and Turkey. It was an amazing series. He's an archaeologist and a very dynamic speaker. It makes it so interesting and fun to learn. And I tried to share it on one of the major, crowdsourced travel sites, and they wouldn't let me share the link. And I thought, gosh, well, that's a shame. Wouldn't it be great if there was a place where you could share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ding.
Yeah. So that was part of how it started.
I really like the idea of, seeing what you're interested in anyway. And then before you go on a trip, sort of immersing yourself in, films, books, cooking, like you say, whatever, because I always mean to do that. And then I do to a certain extent, but then I go away to the place and then I come back and that's when I start reading and then I'm like, I wish I'd have known this when I was going around, because it would have made the tour a lot more interesting. Or, I would have been able to pick things out myself as I was walking around the city and, and
Exactly. Yeah, that has happened to me too plenty of times when I didn't invest the time before we traveled. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, these are interesting artifacts or beautiful buildings. And then getting home, just like you say, which is, another great way to extend the trip.
Yeah.
But, in your recent episode about ways to travel when you're still at home, you had some great ideas in there.
Oh, thank you.
with the walking and the quests and things like that to really help immerse yourself in a place before you go. I thought those were great tips too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really enjoy doing those challenges. I haven't yet done one. I've only sort of started them in the last few months, but I really like the idea of doing one before you go, because you can see the little map and you can see the Google Maps and they send you little postcards and information about the stuff. And I think that'd be a really great way to do it if you did that before you went. Or some people do it as they're going around the actual place, so they're virtually going around at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much point to that sometimes. Yeah, and there are some fictional ones on there as well. And I always laugh in the Facebook group when people are complaining that there's no Google Street View for the Lord of the Rings challenges. And I'm like, I don't think Google Street View camera has made it to Mordor yet. Sorry. But
It's coming. I bet with AI, it's on its
there
way.
we go. Yeah, definitely.
But I laughed out loud while I was listening. You were mentioning the person who is doing the Lord of the Rings quest or had done it in the Hobbit costume. That's just so fun.
It's so good. He's still doing it because there are 5 quests and some of them are really super long, and he's doing all of it dressed as a hobbit, going around. I can't remember where he's based, but he's obviously near a forest somewhere because he posts all these amazing, beautiful pictures in forests of him dressed as a hobbit, and then he comes up with his own little storylines of who he's met along his way, and going to the pub and having a drink with people, and it's just like he's really immersed himself in it. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, we living here in the Pacific Northwest, we have very enchanted looking forests here too, you know, with lots of moss and everything. And our kids often would camp with their cloaks. So we have some pictures of them looking like little hobbits out in the woods.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing. I would totally do that if I think about it. Another way to make it more fun, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And keeping it fun helps us stay engaged. I mean, that's another thing. In addition to helping people find ways to learn more about the particular place that they're going, I also have a whole component about using your excitement to further any travel skills. And included in that is health and fitness. Like if you are planning on going on a hike on your upcoming trip or hiking to the, top of the Acropolis or something, you have to be in decent shape to do that. So maybe you're not feeling motivated to get on the treadmill, but if you know that that's coming up in 4 months, you can do that. But also focusing on other travel skills like photography. If you're planning a trip this coming summer and you've got your camera that's been sitting around during COVID and haven't really been able to enjoy it much. If you're excited about your trip that's coming, take out your lenses, start getting, make your mistakes at home. You'll be making plenty of mistakes, make as many as you can while you're still home. Or if you're interested in ancestry travel or heritage travel, visiting your ancestral homelands or a particular area of the world, you can, if you've done any genealogy research, it's really time consuming and you have to be pretty precise and careful or you'll end up on a totally different line. So I like when my husband and I were planning our trip for our 25th anniversary a few years ago, we went to Ireland. And so part of our gift the year before for our 24th was that we upped our ancestry.com membership level so that we had access to more information. And then we spent the year trying to find out more about where our ancestors were from. Other skills that people can enjoy from home before they go are things like nature journaling or travel journaling. Nature journaling is when you sit down in a place and try to be as present as possible and notice the subtle details. So, you might be drawing a leaf, you might be noticing the landscape around you, but you're really slowing down and paying attention to the natural world. And that's a skill that we can do in our home. You could bring the leaf inside, or you could be in your backyard, or you could be in a local park. And the more you can train yourself, the more that when you're traveling and you bring your nature journal, you've already got this wealth of skills. It's same with travel journaling and writing, or any of these, things that we all have all these things we want to learn how to do. Life's much too short. But if there's something related to your upcoming trip, it can motivate you. You can use it to, push yourself forward in a place that you might not otherwise be focused on. Language learning is an obvious example. I don't know about you, but I always try to at least know, nice ways to greet people and thank them and all of that. And then if you're traveling, you can be much more motivated to do it every day.
Yeah, definitely. And I am right there at the moment with the fitness thing because I'm going to South Africa next year and we're doing a 5-day whale trail hike, which I don't think is a super massive. I don't think it's like a super massive hike, but for me, it's quite a big hike. So that has reminded me I need to get to the gym in the morning, do more on the treadmill on the incline.
That's right. get your knees all ready for that. Oh, that's going to be
Yeah.
tremendous. How exciting for you.
Yeah, I am looking forward to it, but yeah, I definitely need to get in the gym some more before I go. Like you say, it's all about preparation. So yes, that is yeah, reminded me I need to go there tomorrow morning.
Right. Well, I would be much more motivated if I were you, if I knew I was going to get to do that trip.
Yeah, yeah, and it's when you were with the group as well, and you don't want to be the one at the back, like
Right.
everyone,
Holding everyone up.
holding everyone up, which because everyone else going is like pretty fit. So I'm like, oh, okay, it is good motivation. Are you ready for adventure? Are you ready to become location independent? Are you ready to create your ultimate dream lifestyle? Then I have just the thing for you. The Flip the Script Academy with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. My online academy, which is bursting with life-changing courses and resources, is for anyone who feels stuck in life, wants to make a change, would like more meaning and purpose in their life, wants to shake things up, especially after the pandemic, wants to start or grow a business or side hustle they can run from the road, wants to incorporate travel into their lives in all kinds of different ways, or is simply ready for an epic transformation. For more info, just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/academy. And now, back to the Travel Transformation Podcast. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I had Joanna Tupas on the show, who's one of the co-authors of the new book, World Schoolers, which by the time this podcast comes out will be released, I believe, released by Nomad Publishing. And I know you're also one of the co-authors.
Thanks. Yeah.
So please, can you tell us a little bit about that and what you talk about specifically in your section of the book?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. Yeah, this is a book that has 22 different authors. So these are 22 moms in this case who all have used travel as a way to help educate their kids. And I have a chapter in there about our journey from being traditional schoolers to homeschoolers to really child-led learning that involved a lot of travel. And one of the things that I'm most excited about with this book is that it's going to have such a breadth of approaches. I think with so many things, and in particular homeschooling, I've helped to found a homeschooling program. I've served on homeschooling organization boards, and my background is in education. I was a public school teacher and a Montessori school director. So I have this range of experiences with education. And one of the very best things is being around other people who are doing unique and innovative things. You're going to find your own path towards education and travel. Yours is going to be different. It's probably going to be different for each kid or every year. And exposing yourself to this wide range of ideas and approaches and lifestyles, it will trigger things in people where they'll say, oh, that's a gem I could use. And that I can imagine our family doing it kind of like that. You wouldn't be replicating anybody else's. You'll be making your own ways to incorporate travel into your family's lifestyle, but you'll see this super great range. And that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of doing it because you get so many different perspectives, like you say. And I'm not a mom, but I think I'm definitely going to read it because I've met quite a few people who are in it now, so I'm really intrigued. So I will definitely be getting a copy. So you mentioned a bit about family there, and I know connecting with family is really something that's really important to you. And I believe you had an experience in a cave in France.
Oh,
is this right? That really helped with this. So what happened there?
Okay, well, that's a fun story. Thanks. Yeah, we've had a lot of really fantastic experiences traveling as a family. And one of them was in the Paleolithic caves in the Dordogne region of France. So our family, all of us have been really interested in anthropology and the history of humanity. And, we read books and gone to museums and all of those things. So the year before we went on our trip, my husband actually gave me a book by an anthropologist whose focus was on the art of those caves. And I loved the book. It was so great that for my following birthday, my gift was that we hired her to be our guide.
Oh, wow.
One day while we were on our trip in France. And so in the Dordogne, we're in this very picturesque, very lovely medieval town in Bénin, and we drive in our car and meet her off the side of the road and start walking through the woods, and there's the dappled sunlight, and she's explaining how she took her background in art history and moved there back in the 70s onto a farm with her kids. I mean, it sounded like they were hippies in the truest sense. And while they were on the land, she found artifacts by Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon men. And it just conjured up all this excitement in her so much that she went back and got her doctorate and was able to take her background in art and her love of anthropology to have this super vibrant, interesting interpretation of what's going on there. And actually, her interpretation, she recognizes how little we can apply, modern thoughts to what we're seeing. So she brought us through the woods, explaining all of this to us. And then we got to the cave door and put on all our warmer clothes, and she opens it up. And so there's a lot of public caves in that area, like Lascaux, which is now closed, is there. And people come from all over the world to see this cave art. But this is actually on a private property, and the cave itself is called Bernafal. So when we got to this cave door, it was just her and our family, so just 6 of us. And she opens up the big metal door, and there's no electricity inside. She's got her big lantern, and we go in, and it's got that musty smell, being underground and kind of wet on the ground. And she's explaining what we're seeing is casting the light around with the different symbols that as modern people, we don't understand what they meant. Lots of animals, hatch marks, a big rock in the center that she was able to show, if you put the light in this way, it's like a phallic symbol. And what could that have meant back then? And then finally, the light shines on a face. Is one of the only faces from Paleolithic art. So it's like, they think 13,000 years old.
Oh my gosh. That's pretty old.
It is. And so there is our family in this very intimate, hushed, reverent place, looking at how a human being interpreted what it is to be a human being, whether that was a self-portrait or a portrait of someone they loved or whatever it was such a powerful experience to share with our family, and recognize our space in history and prehistory in the real moment. Like, it really brought it vibrantly to life, and we still talk about it frequently. I mean, it was a powerful experience.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
It was.
What can you describe the face? Was it like a simple thing, like a simple?
Yes, it's a simple. It's a simple face. I don't have copyright access to a picture of it, but you can look it up because other people have shared it.
Okay.
It's called Bernafal is the name of the cave. And her name is Christine Desmond Higgins, I think. Yeah, she's got a book. Yeah, Stepping Stones.
So I asked you where your favorite place or places in the world are. We've already mentioned France and Ireland, and the other one is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Why are these places so special to you? I'm guessing the France one is because of what you've just told us, but the other two, I also had a question. You mentioned before that you were looking up your ancestry in relation to Ireland. So did you find anything out about that? Because I'm always interested in that kind of stuff.
We did. We were able to get to different towns where our ancestors were from. And that was really a special thing. I will share that something I didn't know before we traveled, because I only got to, certain cul-de-sacs, dead ends in my research, and then I couldn't get further. There are actually, in Ireland in particular, because of the diaspora, there's lots of local people who you can work with. Once you get it narrowed down to a particular neighborhood or region, there are a lot of local organizations that I wish I had known about that will help you take it further, because they can go and, look at the parish records and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, it's a really good tip for anyone who's sort of looking for that kind of stuff, because there is only so much you can do online, isn't it?
Yes.
Until the internet goes, no.
Especially if you're doing it correctly and carefully. I mean, in a lot of those villages, people were, the father had the same name as the son and
Mm.
the brother-in-law, and it can make it pretty complicated to try to figure out which one's which. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would recommend that. Yeah, talking about favorite places in the world is so hard because there are
I know.
just so many. But I'd be happy to talk a little bit about Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So
Yeah.
we used to live in Hawaii, and that park is on the Big Island of Hawaii. It's the youngest island. It is larger than all of the other islands combined, and it's made up of active volcanoes. So the islands of Hawaii are over a hotspot, and they are constantly moving. And so Kauai, which is the oldest island that tourists can visit, is up north. So it's been moving away from the hotspot, whereas the Big Island is right over it. And so while we're recording, Mauna Loa is actually erupting right now, and it's just a magnificent volcano. We used to live on Mauna Loa itself. One of our kids was born on Mauna Loa. It's a really powerful place to live. It's one of the largest mountains on the planet if you go all the way down, to the base of the ocean. And in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, it's always changing. So it's going to be different whenever somebody might be traveling. The island might be quiet. There might not be any eruptions, but the volcanoes in Hawaii are called shield volcanoes, and it is a different kind of eruption. They're not the big explosive kinds that, many of the scary volcanoes in the world are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very fluid kind of lava. And so you can often see it flowing safely and watch it. So like right now, there are places where people are able to pull over and watch the flow right now from Mauna Loa. So one of my favorite experiences of my life was when we lived there. There was a point in time when the flow was going down into the ocean. And we took our kids. Some people probably think it was very irresponsible, but we did take our kids. You drive out to a road that you can't continue on because there's a lava flow in front of you. So you park your car and start walking and pay attention to, the heat and everything like that. But you are walking on relatively fresh lava flows, and you need to pay attention to where you're going because the rubber on your shoes will start to melt and all of that. But because of the way that it flows, it gets like a crust on top, and then the lava keeps flowing underneath. So there's places you can even go inside of lava tubes. They're like caves where this lava had continued. So you're not like walking on lava itself or anything, but you're right near it. And we were able to, a kid in a backpack and a 4-year-old walk out to, they would have been 6 at that time, walk out towards the coast and see the lava going into the water. We didn't go all the way to the very edge, but you could see it going in, all this tremendous steam, and watch the earth being born, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really powerful, and again, connects you. One of the best things about travel is that it really connects you to the history, to yourself in time, and to other people throughout time. And to have that experience and share it as a family was really another profound experience. So yeah, I'm definitely in agreement that travel is transformational.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds amazing. That definitely sounds like a sight you would never ever forget. Like even as a kid, I think, I've forgotten so many things from my childhood, but certain things, you would never forget. And I think that would definitely be one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I talk about magical movie moments a lot, and I think you've already mentioned too, with the cave in France and with the volcanoes in Hawaii. But I know you mentioned something to me before this podcast about the scablands. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
So could you explain a bit about that? Because I don't know what scablands are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I guess I could also mention one of my deep passions is geology. So, and it is because of what we've been talking about. It just really helps center me and put everything in perspective. It's hard to get wrapped up in a lot of the stuff that's going on in my personal life or something like that when I think about the geological span of time. So one of my favorite places to go is actually in Eastern Washington. And for listeners who haven't been here before, Washington State has a beautiful mountain range, and we're right by the coast. So the water comes in, and we've got just verdant green, green, green. All this precipitation comes down on the west side of the mountains. And the Cascades are so tall that some of the greatest precipitation in the whole country happens on our highest peaks. And then it's dry on the other side. So when you go over, there's this amazing rain shadow. You go over and it starts to become more and more arid and desolate and all of that. And in Washington, once you get down on the other side, not only is it arid, but there's hardly any vegetation. It's like scraped, and that's why they call it scablands. It's just been literally scraped. There's hardly any topsoil. And then there is a lot of volcanic rock underneath. So a lot of people think it's a really boring part of the state. It doesn't look that exciting. And it is, people are trying to basically get from Seattle, where I live, over to wherever they're going. And that's just kind of a boring part of the drive. But the reason that it is scraped like that is actually because some of the greatest floods that ever happened on our planet happened there. And so there in Montana, which is a couple states over, there was this massive, massive lake during the Ice Age. And as things would warm up and the ice would float, sometimes it would breach like this ice dam from underneath, and the water would surge out from Montana and come all the way through Montana, Idaho, and all the way across Eastern Washington, scraping and picking up everything in its path and all of these major boulders and grabbing all of that and bringing it all the way down to where the Columbia River is now. And it actually deposited a lot of it down in Oregon, in these beautiful farmlands. It's called the Willamette Valley. And the reason they have this amazing land to grow all these crops is because it came from Eastern Washington.
Wow.
And got scraped and brought down there. And it is such a tremendous thing to hold in your mind while you're in Eastern Washington, the power, just the incredible power. And that happened over and over and over and over again. It wasn't just a one-time thing. So the water capacity of those floods was like 10 times more than the water in all of the rivers in the world.
Wow.
It was enormous. And most people don't know about it. And so we're just driving along, and there's not much to see. And, there's not even gas stations or restaurants or anything. But when you have done the research before you go, it is actually one of the most amazing things there is to see. Wow. And I feel like it's a great example of why what I'm doing with Trip Scholars is important, that, if you invest the time beforehand, what is happening in your mind while you're traveling can be so incredibly rich and so powerful. And it just takes investing that time and finding a reason to want to invest the time.
Yeah,
so,
definitely. Yeah. I love that. And that is definitely a good example of why you should do the research beforehand, not afterwards, because when you're there in the moment, you can really, if you know all this stuff, then you can really appreciate it and appreciate what happened to get to that point. And you can really sort of be in the present and know all this stuff. Whereas, like you say, a lot of people just drive through it and they're like, meh. If you apply that to travel, then it definitely helps knowing stuff beforehand, because then you can really, you appreciate it anyway, but you'd appreciate certain things on such a deeper level once you know exactly what happened over thousands of years or whatever it is to get to this
Yeah.
point. And that's amazing. I didn't know any of that. I mean, that's a fair few miles to cover from Montana to Washington and Oregon. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, there's some documentaries and books out there about it that help us visualize it, because it's one of those things that the scale is just so grand and tremendous that, you know, at least my little human brain can't really hold it all.
Yeah, it's very hard to picture it all.
But it does make me cry sometimes when I'm, you know, on that drive. It's just so powerful, and yet it just looks like desolate land.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's really great. I love that. I'm learning so much on this podcast. So much about history and geology, and it's great.
It's so fun to get to visit with you. I'm enjoying our conversation. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask if you have anywhere. I'm sure you've got lots of places left on your bucket list of places you want to visit.
Oh my gosh, so many places. Yeah. Like I said, I think that the next trip we're going to take is going to be to Northern Europe. I'll say so. Our youngest child was really ill over the last few years, terribly ill. And part of what we did during that time was talk about taking a trip to Japan, because that is where they have always wanted to be an exchange student. And we thought that was going to be our next trip. And, you know, we were learning and watching movies and everything. But as they've recovered, they had surgery and they've recovered a great deal. And so just within the last few weeks, we've started talking about, you know, are you well enough to take this next trip? And they said that they would actually prefer to go to Europe instead of Japan. They want to do Japan on their own later when they've learned more language. And they want to travel solo in Europe for a little while. So we had been thinking about doing a trip to Northern Europe before. So I'm super excited that that's what we're doing.
Great. So whereabouts, or do you not know yet?
Well, we just got back onto Ancestry.com. We have ancestors both in Norway and then Sweden and Denmark.
Oh, great.
And one of my best friends moved during COVID to the Netherlands. So I've gotten to see her, but everybody else hasn't. So we'll hopefully go there too. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my bucket list, it has so many things on it.
Endless. Yeah, same. And the more people I talk to, especially on this podcast, and they tell me about the like amazing moments they've had and things, the more I'm adding to my list. So it's just getting longer and longer and
exactly.
longer. Which is not a bad thing.
No. Yeah, my husband and I are planning to sell our house in a few years and buy a boat. He's a sailor.
Oh, wow.
And so our plan is to see a lot of places by boat.
That's so exciting. Wow.
It is exciting. Yeah, we're really excited. So he also changed jobs recently to sell sailboats so that we can, you know, keep moving towards making this happen.
Wow. So are you going to literally sell everything, or, you know, put stuff in storage, or?
Well, I think we'll save our Christmas ornaments and photos.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my biggest quandary right now is what are we going to do with all our books?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I can say that to you. I know you're an author.
Yeah, I think about half my storage unit, because I've got all my loads of stuff in storage, is books. So I can, and Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations as well. I collect pumpkins, so about 10% of my storage unit is pumpkins. You know, you've got to keep the important stuff in life.
Well, we've moved quite a bit over the years and lived a lot of pretty places, and we have moved a lot of rocks.
Oh. And they are not easy to move.
No. I'm sure to some people it seems pretty crazy.
That reminds me of that scene in Friends when Ross is moving and Chandler's trying to move the box, and he's like, "What have you got in here? Rocks?" And he's like, "No, that's my fossil collection." He's like, "Oh, so rocks." Great. And then he said he picks up a box and labeled pillows instead and walks off.
That's a good idea. I'd pick the pillow box.
Same. Okay, so before we go, is there anything else you would like to mention or talk about or promote? I know you have a freebie online that we're going to link to in the show notes if you want to mention that, or anything else.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. If folks hop over to tripscholars.com, up at the top, you'll see gift. And I've got a list of like 30 different activities people can get started with today related to their next trip that I promise will make it an even richer experience when they're there. So there's loads and loads of ideas in that. And yeah, if you get that, you're also entered. Every month I do a drawing for $100 off of travel coaching. And I think I mentioned at the beginning that I do one single session and also the longer sessions. The single session is $100, so it's free if you're the winner.
Oh, nice. That is a good price.
And I'm on social media, mostly on Facebook and Instagram at Trip Scholars, and I'd love to connect there.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you again for coming on today. I've had a great time and I've learned so much. Like, was not expecting to learn about this, about geology and everything. It's really cool.
Jess, this was so much fun. Thank you. It was really my treat. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review, and spread the word if you have friends or family who also want to transform through travel. For a chance of winning one of my books in ebook form, please review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and send a screenshot to info@traveltransformationcoach.com or @traveltransformationcoach on Instagram. I'll be picking a new winner each month, and you can choose between any of my non-fiction titles, including Write Your Life, Write Your Year, and Intentional Travel Transformation. You can find out more about me at traveltransformationcoach.com, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.